Multiple reports have recently come out that show Canada's standard of living is dropping at a rapid rate. It's something that we predicted for years and years on this channel, and now it's happening. And the population growth and the migration boom that we've seen is contributing to this, and we'll get to that. So Canada's low productivity reduces standard of living, report finds. So this report by the Fraser Institute says the lack of business investment in information technologies and research and development compared to the US is lowering the productivity of Canadian workers and surpassing our standard of living, according to a new report by the Fraser Institute. And it's not just this report that you're having come out and say this. Another report which came out via the Financial Post, and it was saying that Canada's productivity emergency called the most widespread in history outside of the pandemic. Many Canadians feel worse off than they did 10 years ago, says this report from Desjardins this time. So Desjardins is saying when it comes to Canada's productivity emergency, the entire country is feeling the pain. Earlier this year, Caroline Rogers, Senior Deputy Governor of the Bank of Canada, warned that the country was facing a productivity emergency. You know, this is something that we've talked about so many different times on this channel. And obviously, if you're bringing in loads of people to your country, you don't have the jobs, you don't have the growth, you're not investing in the workers, then of course productivity is going to go down. I mean, Canada has one of the lowest investment per worker of the G7, and mainly that's because of the lack of competition. There's just no need for these large corporations and oligarchs and power structures to invest more money into their workers because they have a monopoly. There's no free market forces that are forcing, for example, grocery stores to provide better service. I mean, if there was like 5-6 airlines operating in Canada, do you think that we would have some of the worst airlines in the world for delays? I mean, it just wouldn't be the case, would it? Because you'd have all these airlines competing with each other in order to bring down delays, in order to get your business. But of course, that's not happening in the Canadian economy. It is fundamentally broken by what has happened over the past 10-20 years, which is an increase in red tape, regulation, everything like that, which just destroys a economy and just hinders growth so much. The country's population surpassed 41 million for the first time this year, and though these gains are keeping the economy afloat on the surface, output per person has fallen in 6 of the past 11 quarters. And you know, they're not wrong there. Population growth, mass, Canada's recession-like economic backdrop, says RBC. You know, they're not the only ones coming out and reporting on this. It's obvious to all of us that if you look at GDP growth and just focus on GDP growth, yeah, sure, you might say, oh, we're not in a technical recession. But does that mean that we're not in a recession? It's exactly like the CPI. If you have inflation, which the CPI says is around 5-6%, it doesn't matter, because if your inflation rate is more like 15%, you can't trade that for the CPI inflation rate. You are burdened with the reality. So there's all these fake numbers that are put out there, but the reality is we're all going to feel what's really going on in the economy day to day, the realities of what's going on versus all these figures which are completely broken, and GDP is one of the most broken of them all because it's deflated for starters with the CPI, which isn't accurate. So if the CPI was more accurate, then we would be in a recession right now. We would have been in a recession since 2022. So you know what? It's just absolutely crazy. But some people are just oblivious to what is going on right now in the economy. So again, the country's population is now 41 million. And since that article, it's nearly gone up another 500,000 people. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. The government of Canada has its own tracking tool, which is so bizarre. But anyway, what would you expect from a government that is trying to bring in so many people that really loves mass migration? You see, more and more countries like the UK, countries in Europe are standing up against mass migration. If you look at Poland as an example, they've had loads of people leave the country. But what that's actually done is it's increased wages, it's increased GDP per capita, and sure, the wages are lower than other places in Europe, but it's clear to see that actually the opposite of mass migration is what will increase GDP per capita. And another country that you can look at in Europe as well is Romania. Exactly the same thing happened. In fact, if you just look at the countries with the worst migration of developed countries and look at GDP per capita of those countries and also look at wages, you'll be surprised at what you find out. Wages going up, GDP per capita also going up. So very, very interesting. The best and brightest don't want to stay in Canada. I should know, I'm one of the few in my engineering class who did. More and more people are leaving Canada. This is no shock, no surprise. The ship is sinking. More and more people are jumping off, and this is just going to increase. The brain drain is just going to get worse and worse. It does not matter what face you put on the government, whether it's Trudeau, Jagmeet, Pierre. It really doesn't matter, because all those power structures behind the scenes are not going to change, and that's what people fail to accept about it. You might have some talking head that says more things that you actually agree with and sure brings more common sense to the table, but the reality is nothing big fundamentally will change in this economy, and it is far bigger than government anyway, that they think that they can actually change it and pull the strings. So it's very interesting what's going on. So the best and brightest don't want to stay in Canada. We know this. We've heard this so many times. I've covered it on this channel. I'm used to seeing my friends pack up bags and move to the United States. Most of my graduating class of software engineering at the University of Waterloo decamped for the US right after graduating in 2019. The few who stay back have strongly considered moving or have gradually made the jump since. Recent data shows that the trend is accelerating and is no longer isolated to tech. According to data from the US Census, more than 126,000 people from Canada moved to the United States in 2022, a 70% increase from 2021 and one of the highest numbers seen yet. Brain drain is a huge loss opportunity for Canada, and the network effects of it compound. New talent goes where existing talent is, and investment and economic growth follows the same path. So you're seeing it up 70% in 2022 from 2021. Isn't that insane when you really think about it? So you're having highly skilled workers leaving, and you've got low skilled workers coming in en masse. Obviously, what do you think is going to happen to productivity in that situation? I mean, it is just blatantly obvious. And the thing is, Canada needs to do something really drastic, and it should have done it 10, 20 years ago. So trying to do it now would be incredibly tough, but they need to drastically reduce government spending, which is going to involve a lot of pain for a lot of people if the size of the government is reduced, because so many people in Canada are dependent on the government and work for the government, even indirectly, the same as the UK. They need to slash red tape and regulation in order to bring investment to Canada. Canada's main competitor is the United States, and the United States is one of the most business-friendly places in the world. A lot of people don't know that, but the United States is incredibly business-friendly, and it's also got a bigger market. So when you're trying to compete with the United States, you don't put in more red tape and regulation and try and be like them, because you don't have the demand and the size of the economy to attract the business investment that the United States does. And also the fact that the United States has the reserve currency also drives a lot of capital into the country. So Canada has to do something very extreme in order to bring investment into the country that I just don't think any politician currently of the three status quo parties is going to do anything about. I mean, Pierre used to talk a lot about cutting red tape and regulation and reducing the size of government. Not so much anymore since he's become leader of the Conservatives. But once you get into those power circles, people's tune changes. This is like all politicians, unfortunately. And if you look at foreign direct investment, I mean, this is just a shocking chart when you really look at it. So this chart goes all the way back to 1981, and you can see that foreign direct investment has actually gone negative. So it hasn't gone negative since 2009, 2010, around that time, and since 2003, 2004. So it's gone extremely negative here in 2024, and if I put it on a chart, you can see exactly what's happened. So this is not good at all. And obviously, unfortunately, a lot of the reasons why is because of mass migration. Now, I'm pro-immigration in the sense that I believe in immigration of highly skilled, but as somebody who's been through that process, I know how it's highly skewed to those people that actually don't have very many skills and are coming in on other different programs and basically using loopholes in order to get into Canada, like the student visa loophole that they're trying to crack down on. Yet the amount of study permits that are being issued continues to actually skyrocket now. So it's unbelievable what's happening. And then if you look at this as well, dozens of Indian students queue up for Tim Hortons job in Canada. Video goes viral and you can see what's happening here. Dozens of people. He's not asking for much. He's asking for a part-time job, something working at Little Caesars, Tim Hortons, Wendy's, something like that. You would think those jobs would be plentiful, but they're not, because the amount of unskilled migration that is coming into Canada has skyrocketed. So they constantly say, oh, we need more immigration because we have these labor shortages in certain fields. Okay, then why the hell do you prioritize unskilled immigration? Why aren't you prioritizing skilled immigration? The immigration system is such a mess. It is unbelievable. And I can seriously tell you that because I've been through that process as somebody with skills trying to work for an employer that couldn't find somebody to do the job that I was doing in Canada. And they just made it a complete nightmare to actually get permanent residence in Canada. So anyway, it's just unbelievable what is going on in Canada. The standard of living just continues to slide, continues to crash, continues to decline. And it's just going to get worse from here on out until something dramatic changes. And I don't think any of the politicians or main status quo parties are offering a solution or are offering to do anything drastic. It's much of the same nonsense, just a different way of talking about the same crap. So anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here, which is about the crumbling housing market in Canada. And if you're looking for a VPN to protect your privacy, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. That's the VPN that I use myself. The affiliate link is below in the pinned comment. I will see you in the next one.